What's going on with this?
So I called your contractor friend to come pull this thing in. It's your wife gave me this.
Oh, Mike.
This is Beach Talk Radio. This is Beach Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Hello, America, and welcome to the #1 radio station in all of Fort Myers Beach. Beach Talk Radio. Here are your hosts, Kim and Ed Ryan.
And we have a special guest sitting in for Kim today. But before we get to that, this is episode number 36 of Mondays with the Mayor, and we are broadcasting live from Diamond Head. A special 5 o'clock start today because at 6 o'clock there's a FEMA meeting in the Diamond Head Ballroom that we'll touch on a little bit before the hour is up. So we are going to end the show 5 minutes early today so that Dan can get over to the FEMA meeting. And today's show is sponsored in part by Alex King. Current Coastal Realty is a team of a dozen realtors with expertise in all island market segments. They're on top of their game, and they'll keep you current with up-to-the-minute boots on the ground or Crocs on the ground if you're Alex King. CCR is your go-to expert for buying a new construction home. Give them a call today at 239-747-7446. 239-747-7446. He's interviewed presidents, he's interviewed mayors, and he's interviewed rock stars.
Yes, I have.
Sitting in for Kim today is Stephen Clark.
I just don't have as good a hair as she does.
That's all right.
Nobody does. Nobody does.
So thank you for sitting in for Kim
my
today.
pleasure.
And you're also an island resident, so you have questions that perhaps some of the other folks that watch the show also have. So, Dan, I understand you went fishing this weekend. And how did that go?
Well,
No comment?
well, we caught a couple small tuna and a couple mahi, but nothing. It was pretty calm. It's the calmest I've ever seen the Atlantic. So
It was. I went out on my boat and it was just nice even out here.
yeah, it was. But we have some really good video. Maybe I'll post those video of
Nice.
must have been 30 to 50 dolphin jumping in the wake for
That's cool.
miles. It was. I mean, they were putting on a heck of a show. That was worth it just for that.
So I made a couple of posts today, and the one that got the most comments today was something about chickens and roosters on the island.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Have you seen anything about where these chickens are coming from? And
I've heard a couple of places. Andy actually has a couple of visitors where he's staying on the
no
island.
kidding, the town manager.
Yeah, so he's got a couple of roosters, I guess, that are running around his place. But I saw Miramar or something. There's
Yeah.
some more.
Did they just pop up somewhere, or are there any rules against having roosters and chickens as pets on the island? Or
Well, I'm not sure exactly how they got there, but I'm sure they didn't just grow out of the ground.
right?
Well, you know, we're like Key West now. That's
That's
Key
what
West
everybody
is
said,
famous
yeah.
for their roosters.
Are they
so-
really?
You know, although I got to tell you, it's very annoying when first time I stayed in Key West and those damn roosters started going off in the morning.
Oh, sure.
Oh, they're loud. 3:00 in the morning,
Oh, yeah.
they're going off.
Yep.
You might as well just get up.
Now, before we get to your first question, we have a new addition to the September 28th event that's coming up a week from Thursday, and that's Kevin Guthrie.
Yeah, his office confirmed that he'll be able to be there, so we're looking forward to that. I think we got a good group of speakers.
Yeah.
That are, 3 minutes apiece, 2-3 minutes apiece, just to kind of, let us know how their year's been going as well as ours. So
Mhm.
I think some of the council members from Sanibel will be there, Estero, Bonita. So there'll be a good group of people there just to kind of remember,
Mhm.
just to remember it's is what it is.
And Kim showed off the gift to some folks that we had watching football yesterday, and they all
did
loved
she?
it. So,
Oh, good.
and I still haven't looked at it. I don't want to see it until they.
I have not seen it, but I think Megan
Yeah.
got to see a glimpse of it. I think Kim showed her, and they both were tearing up.
Huh.
So it must be
Oh,
pretty
great.
good.
Awesome. All right. So, Stephen Clark, what is your first question for the mayor?
I think the mayor probably sees what's incoming. It's the permit process. And I know that's probably one of the biggest
Yes.
pains right now for the city, but I'm going through this personally. It's been almost 5 months that I haven't had a permit. And I will preface this totally honestly. My builder got caught unaware. I mean, he used to be able to just turn a permit in and get nothing, get something
Sure.
done quickly. The rules have changed. They've gotten way more complicated. You're outsourcing the permits to ours goes to Miami to some guy. And
Part
I
of it,
think
yeah.
he is. I think he's taking perverse pleasure in denied. We've got like 6 denials on it. And the problem is when he denies it, he will deny something and then send it back. And it goes through this big process of
Yep.
2 weeks going back through the cycle. So we'll fix that, send it back in. Then he goes, okay, now you need to fix this. Denied.
If you're lucky enough to get the same person.
Well, we've gotten the same person.
Oh,
I
you
think
have?
we're getting
Oh.
the same person over and over again. So I guess the question is, are you aware of, I'm going to guess you're aware of this, but how do you fix that process that is, you're dealing with these outsourced people who I don't think have any real stake in our community?
Mhm. The easy answer is you eliminate them. You eliminate the problem. And that's what we're working on doing. And hopefully we'll have some good news sooner than later on just how we're doing that. But there's nothing official. But trust me, we're working on it. We know that is I know personally that because I've looked up many permits for people and have noticed and actually have interjected in some of the emails that went back and forth between homeowners and this firm on the other coast that I think they weren't aware that I was copied on it or I was blind copying on it or something. But I did interject a little bit with maybe probably not the nicest words, asking if this is how we treat our residents. And for me, that was the tipping point where we have to do something to eliminate the problem.
And I think that's where I come in with the next point is, and I've talked to you about what I believe is the leadership, and this rests on your shoulder. This department works for you. The building department works for you, and you set the tone. And right now, the large feeling, it's not just me. It's a lot of people I talk to are in the same boat. They just don't feel that the township is really being helpful.
Well, I mean, I think I've gotten several people that are opposite of what you're saying. That they've had nothing but good responses.
I've
from
looked
the
for those
town.
people. I found a few of the people. I say, how did you do it?
Yeah, right. Well, and I don't know how, whether it's they came in and they were proactive, but a lot, not just your contractor. I don't even know who your contractor is, but a lot of contractors were caught off flat-footed after the storm. They've never had to deal with cost forms. They never had to deal with, usually you could just send in, this is the window I'm going to use. And
just a drawing.
and here it is.
Yeah.
And now the requirements are much different to have to do that.
And,
So-
and why are they that much different?
well, basically it's the requirement. FEMA will tell you that, it's the town's prerogative. It is. And we've talked about this ad nauseum. It is the town's prerogative. There are things that town can do, but again, without having, because they come back and do 100% audit on all the permits that you put out. And if you don't have the proper paperwork, they can start clawing money back from you that they've given you in response.
Okay.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't talk about. So we're trying to be as proactive as we can to make sure that we're getting all the paperwork that we can. And it's a learning curve, even for our staff. There's a lot of things that we're starting to see that, one of the things we're talking about is the pools that were put in the EC zone that now can't build back after the storm. That's nothing anybody ever thought about since the town incorporated, because it's nothing that we've had to worry about.
Right.
So it's a thing that's in the code that we got to go back and we'll correct.
So how
it
is
and
it
we'll work
that
through it.
you're allowed to go to the code and change that they are allowed to repair their pools when it seems like the rule is not your rule? The rule is that I'm not.
Well, there's a difference
saying
between
this-
the coastal construction line and in the EC zone.
I see.
So the 78 coastal construction line, that is outside the town. We can't just change that line.
Gotcha.
But the EC zone, that is through our land development code. There are things in there that we could change to allow it. And what we're running into are some of the condos have, some of the restaurants or the places on the island, resorts on the island have an issue where their pool got damaged or their fence around their pool got damaged. And because of the way the code's written, they can't get that back without having to go through a long special exception.
So it's not the coastal
process.
construction line.
It's not the
That's
coastal
out
construction.
further. This
That's-
is your
well,
line.
I don't know that there are any pools on the seaward side of the coastal construction line.
Okay.
I don't know I don't know off the top of my head if one or two is maybe past that, but the majority of them, it's an issue with the EC zoning district. that you
And
can't-
if it is the coastal construction line, though, they can't repair them, right? That's nothing you can control.
well, it doesn't mean that we can't go back to. That's kind of what we're working on. If there
I
is
see.
one on the other side of the CCCL, and they want to repair it,
Right.
not rebuild it, just repair, whether it's the coping or if it's resurfacing, it's not enlarging it, it's not doing anything. Is there a way that we can allow that to happen if it's on the other side of the CCCL? We haven't gotten the answer yet. We're still working on it, but we can, through our code, work with making it administrative or some other way to allow staff to be able to say, yeah, you can build back your fence the way it was, or you could put the pool back the way it was before the storm. But you guys know as well as I do, when you give someone an inch or a contractor an inch, they're going to take a mile. Oh, I swear the fence was,
Right.
5 feet on this side of it, and it wasn't. So it's trying to make sure that they're getting back exactly. And most people are good stewards, and they only want what they had before
Mhm.
What's
when
ta-
you're in the EC zone.
What's taking so long? I mean, it's almost a year now. We're up at this point of almost a year, and you still don't even know the answers to some of the questions we've been asking since day one.
Well, that particular is not an answer to a question that's been asked since day one. Some of these condos didn't even realize that their pool was not going to be able to be, So when you start seeing permits come in, that's when you start learning of some of the problems. This problem we didn't really hear about until about a month and a half. We knew we were going to have some issues with condos, but it was on other things. It was, because with condos, it's not just the town's permitting staff you're dealing with, it's the fire district as well. So because it's considered a commercial building.
Can you tell me how many permits have actually been applied for? How many have been issued?
Some reason I knew I was going to be asked that question.
I couldn't
get
find
the-
it. I looked everywhere for the answer.
I didn't
couldn't
get
find
the, I think it's probably been 2 months since we've updated
Mhm.
those numbers, but usually once a month I'll try to update the numbers. How many have been applied for? How many have been issued? How many are still in the queue? I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but
I guess what I'm aiming at is then you start comparing that to the number of buildings that are substantially damaged. So we'll know how many people have not even applied for a permit and how many are going to have to at some point in time. And I'm just figuring it's got to be a fairly low percentage when you finally look at the number of permits approved. When you compare it to all the buildings that have to be eventually replaced, I mean that's got to be disheartening for a mayor who's trying to rebuild a city.
yeah. And again, it's not just that. It's you've got people that are doing nothing. They're putting a for sale sign in the front yard and they're not going to touch it.
That's right. Ed's going after them.
Yeah, I know. So there's such a wide array of people. There's people in these condos that, they want to get back, but for reasons they can't get back in, whether it's permitting, whether it's waiting for parts, whether it's contractors, whether they don't have the money to put back into their building. I mean, there's so many different spectrums of people are trying to push through to get back in their houses. But we when we see them, we try to address them as fast as we can. And we don't know what all the problems are going to be. There'll be another problem that nobody has thought about next month when another permit comes in. So as we see them and we address them as fast as we can, and the example that I gave you was that EC zone that we're dealing with now. I think there's 6 or 7 properties that are going to deal with that issue. So it's not a huge amount that's going to affect a lot of people,
Right.
but it is something that will affect a lot of people in that building.
I've been hearing about this company in Miami being changed to a new company for at least a few weeks, if not longer than that. What's taken this change so long?
Well, we were full transparency. We were discussing bringing that in-house back when Keith was here.
Right.
We were going down the road of discussing it with them and found out that Keith's wife actually works for that firm in a different capacity somewhere else. So because of a conflict of interest, we couldn't bring them in.
The firm that you're using now, or the firm that?
No, the firm that we're looking at
Okay.
bringing in to bring
Okay.
it in-house. So we couldn't. So we've been in discussion with them, and in the outside, it may look like nothing's going on inside those little trailers, but there's a lot going on every single day. I assure you that. But so now, obviously, Keith is no longer with the town.
Mhm.
We can we've resumed those communications with them, and we're just waiting on a contract from them for a dollar amount.
And my understanding is it's going to be like night and day. This new company's
We're
got
certainly
tons
hoping so.
of praise.
We have made all our issues known. Process being number one issue.
Mhm.
You know, if you that's to me the biggest glaring thing that stands out to me is the process. If you send it in for review, it should go through the entire review.
Mhm.
If it's flood, whatever it is, if it's building, whatever the issues are, it should go through the entire review process and come back with one resubmittal or with a one rejection letter.
Right.
Allow you and your contractor the time to fix it.
Yep.
And then, in my opinion, it should go back to the same reviewer, because as you said, what's happening is it's going in,
Yeah.
you're fixing those issues, and it's going back, and then someone else within the company is looking at it and saying, well,
You
okay,
forgot
but
this
what
too.
about this, and
Yeah,
this, and then
yeah,
it's going back. And that one, it's a lot of waste of staff time, it's
Yeah.
a waste of resources, a waste of your time, and it's all stuff that can be fixed. So we're making sure whoever we're working with going forward that they need to know the process is the number one issue we have to fix.
Well, we got a permit. Actually, we got a permit to put in a new gas tank because we had to replace our propane gas tank. So we finally, after a long thing of 2 or 3 on that, we got that issued.
Mhm.
And then the guy in Miami said, you should not have that permit. You can't have that permit. So now we have a permit that we're told by the guy we can't have. So I'm trying to, so
you're the probably the second or third person I've heard say that in the last 2 weeks, and it's on my high list of
Good.
figuring out why are you getting a permit now? They're trying to say you
trying
can't
to
have it.
Yeah.
So almost a year later, permitting has been like your number one priority as the mayor. What's the grade for your permitting department today?
Well, it's gone up and down.
What is it today?
Well, right after the storm, permitting was getting so much better because we had the resources. The state had the resources here to help us. When those resources went away at the deadline, we were back to a very small group of people trying to process a very large amount of permits. We started to see it going the other way.
Mhm.
And when you guys know as well as I do, when people start to feel overworked, their customer service goes down a little bit because they're on edge too. They're trying to rebuild their houses just like we are.
Mhm.
So their customer service kind of goes down. So we had to I shouldn't say we. Andy had, I'm guessing, a conversation with them and said, we need to, they may not like the answer, but you at least have to be pleasant enough when you talk to them about it or help direct them. And that's another issue that we have is we have to be more proactive. If someone's coming in for a permit on a structure, whether it's windows, doors, whatever it is, and we give them that permit, we need to go a little bit further and not just look singly at, okay, they want a door. What are you
What
going to do
else?
with the entire structure?
Yeah.
What are your entire plans? And I'll use the Lowry's as a specific example. If we're going to give you a permit for a garage door, what are your intentions? We know you lost your house. We
Right.
know, but that comes both ways. You have to be upfront when you're coming in too, so that if it's an open two-way communication, we don't want people spending money on something that they can't keep.
Right.
And not knowing what your plan is ahead of time, it's
Mhm.
hard for staff to read your mind.
This leads me to another question that I think I assume there's going to be some sort of day of reckoning coming, because I personally know of many structures that have been brought back fully rebuilt, all the way nicely done, probably way over 50% worth,
Mhm.
and they've never pulled a permit.
There will be a day of reckoning. I've been told from people that have gone through this before, other municipalities, that you may think you're getting away with it now, and you may get away with it for a couple of years, but when they come around for that full audit, there's going to be a day of reckoning. And what that looks like, my understanding of what I've been told, is it's not pleasant for anyone because the town gets put in a very tough position to have to tell them things that they don't want to be told.
What is
And-
the result of that when
Well,
somebody
here's
doesn't?
a perfect example.
Mhm.
People in the past that were doing things in their house without pulling a permit, and then Ian came and took their structures away or damaged it, and they thought, well, I can rebuild it. But then they see the tax roll record, and it says they think their property. For instance, I know of a guy that has two of the exact same houses.
Yeah.
Same square footage, same everything. One house had an evaluation about $460,000 just on the home. The other one had $169,000. Same square footage, all updated at the same time. One he did without a permit, one he did with a permit.
Mhm.
So that's the consequences that you have. couldn't rebuild the second house because you skirted the system the first time and it cost you this time. So that's probably what's going to happen again. What they can do, they obviously can't make them tear it down, but they can make that house uninsurable. They could put you on a list that says you no longer can get federal assistance from if there's another storm, meaning you cannot sell it to anybody that doesn't have the money to pay cash for it in the future, because that house will no longer be insurable.
So those people that did the work without a permit, all these other people that are going through all this crap trying to get a permit or waiting, I don't mean to say crap, but there's
No, it's good. Actually, it's a good word.
but these people that did the work without a permit, it just sounds like they're going to be able to get away with it.
Oh, they're not going to get away with it. I mean, they'll
And
be
there's
caught
not, I mean, but
eventually.
there's nothing the town can really do. They're not going to go in, like you said, and make them tell
Well,
it.
I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know
Right,
exactly
right.
what when that day of reckoning comes. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. We don't until we're told what we have to do.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there's not a lot we can do. We can issue violations if we see them, but we can't just walk. You know, we're not going to walk into
Yeah.
a finished house and say, "Hey, we know this kitchen wasn't here a year ago. How did it get here without a permit?"
Well, and you know what's going
But
to
where
happen
people will
is,
get caught is what the town can do.
right.
I'm assuming, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I may be speaking out of turn, but if you've fixed your house back and we know it's been damaged, because everybody knows the houses on the island that have been damaged. There's been enough pictures, there's been enough documentation to
Wait,
know.
what house has
And then all
not
of a
been
sudden-
damaged?
Well, then all of a sudden you see this house on Airbnb being rented out. Well, the town could certainly tell you you're not getting a license to rent your
Okay.
property.
There are other ways.
I mean,
then.
there's ways. So there will be probably more than one day of reckoning, to use
Right.
your words. What the town can specifically do, that would be one that comes to the top of my mind. If you're going to use it as short term,
But it's not going to be something that happens immediately. It's going to be over the course of years.
It'll be as you know. We don't have one person specifically designed and trying to find which houses haven't been built back without a permit. We know they're there, and what's happening here is no different than any other place that's been devastated by a natural disaster. FEMA knows that what's going on. The
Yeah.
state knows what's going on. The municipality knows what's going on. We don't maybe know what specific person, but we know.
yeah,
Just
and
like
I-
after the storm, the unlicensed contractors that were down there doing all kinds of work. One got arrested. You
Yeah.
know, they knew
Not-
this was coming. It's just a matter you can't catch everyone.
and I don't want people to lose their house or really get
No,
screwed, but it is
nobody
not
does.
right when other people are going through the
But it
process
is so,
to get
it is
permits.
so tempting for me to sit there and say, man, I'm watching these people down there do this to their
Mm-hmm.
house, and I don't have a permit, and they're getting done. I mean, this dahlia came by. My living room ceiling is now ruined because I don't have siding yet. That was lost in the storm. I don't have siding, so the water came in, and now my living room is ruined because I can't get a permit to get siding so I can button my house up.
Well,
So I feel like it's just going and doing it.
well, I think yours is a little bit different than most, and if we're being honest.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
I did look into yours.
Yeah.
You gave me your information, and you're looking at doing a remodel. So you're looking at
I
expanding.
picked a really bad time to remodel.
Right. So you're looking at doing. So what people that are trying to just rebuild what they had, you're
Right.
trying to actually do something a little bit different.
Yeah,
So
and plus we believed we were a compliant house, FEMA compliant, which we are. It turns out there was a small paperwork error way back on our
right.
2000 elevation certificate that says we which leads me to another question. Okay, so this is kind of a little Ed's going to wipe the lens here for us.
Yeah.
Now you've ruined it. You
Now
touched something
You
and the
shut it
whole
all
camera's
off. You lost the video
You
completely.
lost the video completely.
People are probably clapping in the
Probably,
background.
yeah. So with ours, this brings up something that I was just wondering, why can't the town be more helpful? And here's the problem. So we have this elevation certificate that failed to mention that we had the proper vents, which we do.
Okay.
We have the proper vents. You can see them with your. And she was great, very helpful. But she said, my hands are tied. I can't do it. I said, why can't you just walk down the street to my house, look with your eyes, see the flood vents and say, yes, they're there.
Well, I guess if it were me, I would have said, "Can I talk to your boss or your boss's boss?" I would have sat there until I got the town manager in there if I needed to.
Well,
give me an
that's why I'd
answer.
like to find somebody just when I go back to saying I would like the town to be more helpful.
I agree. I
Why
agree.
can't the town live on this island, look at it with their eyes,
My-
and say, look at that, they are.
And this is not an excuse. My guess is it was a documentation issue because it
There
wasn't
was.
documented on your. You can do what you're trying to do.
Right, but it seems to me that the township ought to have the authority to sit there and correct the documentation.
I don't know that the town can. Again, I'm not a planner. I'm not a building official. But my guess is that the town cannot alter any documents. It'd be like the town signing off on a structural engineer's documentation saying, well, we know that post has got a little crack in it, but we'll just sign off.
I don't know. It seems a little like what happened with Rick on the roof. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but in a way, FEMA says, well, it's up to the town to decide what to do here, as long as you make the right decision. But you gave you a little latitude to say, okay, this is what this is.
Well, yeah. Well, there was a lot of things in there. There was the structure was attached to the garage. It wasn't attached. Well, it was clearly attached to the garage. So getting through that hurdle, which then puts it into another
abutted.
Right. Tightly abutted. Yeah. Unpainted. Yeah. The whole thing. But between the state and FEMA, they got together, or I should say the state got together. They looked at it and said, there's a couple options that you could do. And they worked through it. So,
okay, good.
Well, why it took that long?
Right.
I don't know. But there was an option. It wasn't ideal for them, obviously. And it wasn't ideal for the town to have to go through all that, or everybody else that had to go through it, but they got to what the best yes could be.
Yeah.
So back to the question that I asked. You didn't give a grade. What's the grade right now?
The grade. Well, I'd have to give 2 grades.
Wow, you are a politician.
No, I would, because I would give a D- to the process at best, but I would give a B+ to our staff.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I said there it's but as you said earlier, we need to have people that are here or close to here that see the devastation, that
It's their
understand it,
community,
that you have to look at a way to get to a yes, not just be no and tough.
Folks, I'm not changing anything else. I'm not pulling the shades down. I'm not putting curtains up. You can either listen to the show or you can watch it the shitty the way it's coming across now. It's the
you
internet.
got a problem
so
here? What's your problem?
I don't know. It's the internet is not great, and it gets you. I get easily irritated when people give me so much crap about it. I apologize that we're in front of the window. Okay, if you don't want to watch the show, don't watch the show. I don't care.
It's called Beach Talk Radio anyway. Just
it's a dinky little podcast. If you don't like the way I put it out there, then don't watch it. It's no big deal.
You're getting irritated.
I know. It's just
over one little thing.
I try to make things. I'm actually irritated with myself because I get set up here an hour in advance, and it's still have mistakes that are happening. Like I can't even get the other camera to start up again. I don't know why. Somebody says to me, go clean the lens off. And I, like an idiot, I go clean the lens off, and then the camera will come back on.
Because they thought because of the view.
And I'm sure it has to do with the view, but the view behind.
Well, maybe next time just do it with the brown background.
Yeah. Next time we'll just go do it in the conference room. A nice view of the beach. I mean, I wish they could see how nice the beach looks, but you can't because it's too bright. So are you done with permitting now, for crying out loud?
It's a
half an hour on permitting.
I did want to go to the Ed's Hall of Shame there because that's also.
Don't jump ahead now.
Okay.
So just to give everybody a little background, the town did send out 50 letters to unsafe structures. The first question I have for you about that, and I took some grief about putting that list out there, but it's public record. It's one
which
of the
we did verify, by the way, because we did get some emails about you putting that. We didn't put those addresses out there. You did that.
Yes, but
it is public information that you could put out. So you didn't do anything illegal. You didn't do anything wrong. But we did not, as a town, put the information out there.
Right. Was the list that you sent me 100% correct?
Oh, probably not. I'm sure. Well, so the list is not necessarily just a house. It could be the boathouse on the back or the boat lift in the back. It could be not just specifically a house. It could be something else.
Part of the property.
Some part of the property. It could be overgrowth. It could be, and we don't know the reason why things are there. And that was the whole point of the letter going out. The letter was sent out to get people's attention. It wasn't to say, we're coming after you. We had a couple people email us about, we're waiting on elevating our house through the mitigation.
That's what you wanted to know, though.
But that's what we wanted to know.
Right.
So this is why I always say if people can be proactive and say, hey, and by sending out that list, several people have already now applied for the permit. So it's just essentially trying to figure out where you're at. The town, if you're waiting for FEMA or the state to say that you can lift your house or you're going to get that grant money, that's fine. We get it. We understand. You're in a program. You're waiting. If you're waiting for E&Debris cleanup to still come around and clean your house or take your house away, fine, let us know. It's the people that we're trying to find are the serious offenders that are
Ignoring
willingly
everything.
not doing anything, and they're not going to answer to the letter. They're not going to do anything. Those are the ones that we can. I don't want to say forcefully, but that we can start being more aggressive to go after if they're choosing not to do anything. We're not coming after you because
And
but I think there's a clarification that needs to be made. Just because your house maybe isn't ready to be done doesn't mean for the sake of your neighbors you can't take care of your yard.
Well, here's our problem. We're getting rats now. I mean, this is a
Right.
problem we never had before. Now, every morning I wake up to rat trails all around the outside of my house because I have in my neighborhood a whole bunch of structures that are just overgrown now. They haven't been touched since September 28th. Nobody's mowing the grass or weed whacking. I don't know what stuff is in those buildings, but obviously it's attracting rats. And I don't know if we have an island mitigation program. We used to have an insect mitigation program, but somehow I think we're going to have another problem.
We are. And again, there's such a process that you have to go through to be able to just rip someone's house down.
Yeah.
Can it be done? Certainly. And this letter is the first step in doing that. Some of the other ones that are not taking care of their property, then it goes through the magistrate process. If you don't take care of the process, the magistrate can issue you fines, and then we go down that road. So it's a case-by-case situation because every house is different. But the letter wasn't meant to be threatening. It wasn't meant to be anything other than let us know where you're at. We're willing to work with you.
I wish you were threatening. I mean, it's negatively impacting our community.
Well, part of the letter going out was initiated by the residents too, not just the town. Like some people got so offended by the list that they felt like the town was going after them. Well, part of it was the residents are getting tired in some cases of seeing the blight not being cleaned up, and they want a little help from the town. And if the list needs to be adjusted, some guy asked me to post a retraction today, and I was like, dude, I didn't do anything wrong. I posted the list exactly the way the town gave it to me, and if there's a wrong address on there, then I'll correct it.
Sure.
I'll correct it, but that's not a mistake.
And I'd argue the people on that list, as soon as they do something to fix that situation, they ought to be able to send you a note and say, "Hey, Ed, I'm fixing it," and you put that up there and say, "Here we go. We got."
I don't want any issues with people that are residents of the island or anything, but there are structures that are being totally ignored. You see it every weekend when we walk up and down the roads.
Well, I think we're all getting a crash course in post-hurricane or post-disaster build back, and it stares us in the face. Some people can accelerate faster. Some houses weren't devastated as much as other houses. Hibiscus was a very hard hit street. 5 streets down wasn't hardly hit. So they're all in different spots.
Right.
One guy's trying to rebuild his first level of his house. Or another guy doesn't even have a house. He's living in his camper. Yeah. But they should be afforded the same rights if they're between two houses that have chosen to do nothing, and they have to live in that as they're trying to rebuild their house. But you want to be sensitive. I think I saw a comment, maybe it was on your page or someone's page, about a lady that has to drive by her house every single day going to work, and she's put her heart and soul into that, her life savings into this house, and she can't rebuild it without this grant to help build it back. So she's in a holding pattern until, which I found out today, what I did not know, the grant that everybody's talking about, lifting your house, you get the money. That money it takes, which I wish we would have known this before. Maybe I should have asked the right question, so I'll take the blame for it. But that money doesn't even get allocated until a year after the storm.
Oh, wonderful.
What's the logic for that?
I just found that out today. So once it gets allocated, it goes, and this is my understanding from the meeting that we had today, that money, the percentage of that money all goes then to the state, and then the state distributes that funding out. So
how many people have applied for these grants to raise their homes?
There's a couple different, I don't know the exact number, but we met the quota to be able to get that. Tomorrow it's on my agenda to reach out to the state to figure out.
Does it cover the full cost for a homeowner to raise their home?
I think it's up to $75,000. It's $150,000. They cover half. You pay the other half.
Wow.
I see.
To elevate your house.
But you have to wait a year. So you have to live in a tent or a trailer for a
caveat
year.
is you can't touch it until they tell you it's okay.
You can't touch your own house.
So if you want that money, no, you can't touch it.
Again, what's the logic to that? I mean, what's the logic to town hall not coming down for 10 months? It doesn't make any sense.
Send your letters to DC. It starts
It's
there.
all asinine.
So there's several people that receive these letters that are in that list. You know, why has your house not been touched? And but not that it hasn't been touched, but why aren't you doing anything?
But those people, now that you know, will come off the list because you know where they are in the process, right?
Sure,
I mean, the
sure.
list is going to be a living document of,
Yeah,
it's not
an
just
end-all
50.
be-all. No.
It's not just 50. There's way more than 50
Oh, yeah.
properties on the beach that
Yeah,
need to
there's-
at least get
there's-
addressed.
You gotta send them out, and some people maybe aren't even opening their letters, or they're
Yeah,
not getting them.
Or getting them, yeah.
So you have to try to be more. The ones that we're not getting response from, we'll be more aggressive with them to find out why we're not getting a response from them. Did they not get the letter?
Mhm.
They just plain out ignoring us. So that's our next step.
Okay, so yes, the answer to those of you that are conversing back and forth about Bill Bonds, was that his name?
Bill Bonds, yes.
Yeah, Stephen told me about him before the show started, so I do know who he is. I've never seen him or
Yeah,
anything.
Bill
like
Bonds was the legendary. He was the first local anchor man in America to make $1 million a year
that. Wow.
out of Detroit, and he was a bombastic,
Yeah.
opinionated. You could not help but watch him. I mean, he when he came on television, the other stations might have well just signed off.
And what did you say he did with the mayor?
Well, he called Mayor Coleman Young out into the street for a fist fight.
Okay.
I don't think the fist fight ever happened, but
I was gonna
had
say,
it
how did it
happened, I
work
would have
out?
put my money on Bonds. He was tough.
Yeah.
If
If anyone has any questions for our mayor, you can't challenge him to a
we're not
fist fight or
calling him out on
anything.
the street.
You can type them in the chat box if you have any. So, anything else you
I
want
want
to?
to say one of my frustrations, and it's I drive from Bonita Springs down Hickory, and all those big houses. Granted, they were much more modern and well built houses than many of our beach houses.
Mhm.
But you go down the street, and there are crews working on almost every one of those houses. They're almost all back. Then you cross the bridge under our island, and it just looks like a ghost town. You hardly ever see a crew even working because it's just like
Well, I disagree with that. I mean, maybe you aren't driving up and down the side streets like I do, but there's plenty of crews working on houses. It may not be pilings going in the ground, although we have that
we
happening
do have
too.
some of that. Yeah.
So there's crews working. You know, Bonita didn't get hit nearly as hard as we did, not even close. But there are the small houses that were beach cottages. One was a friend of mine, I know for a fact,
Yeah.
that completely disappeared. It was in the mangroves across the street.
Yeah, I think I had to drive around in my Jeep the day after the storm.
You
so
might
it
have.
was- yeah.
So there was a couple of those. Some of those houses that are down there they were before the storm, they were in mid construction.
Right.
Because I know several companies that are doing work down there. So it's hard to say why they are. I don't see any new pilings going in, but it's been probably 2-3 weeks since I've been down there.
Mhm.
But the scale of what they're dealing with and what
Yeah.
we're dealing with is night and day difference. But I don't think it's a fair assessment to say that they're building and we're not.
It just
I
kind
don't
of
think-
seems that way. I just
Sure,
I understand because we did get hit so much
Mhm.
harder. But I talked to so many people. You know, I'm doing the music thing in the bars, and so people are constantly coming up to me, the out of towners, and saying, "Man, it's just so disheartening. I thought you'd be farther along." And I try to tell them, so listen, it does take a while, but originally everybody kept saying, "Well, this is going to be a 5-year
did
process."
did
Do
the-
you think it's going to still be a 5-year process?
Did the person that asked you that actually give you the rule book to show how long
long
it's
it takes?
supposed to
Yeah.
take when you
Yeah.
have a near Category 5 hurricane?
Well,
wipe out every
I had
structure.
people literally 2 weeks after the storm saying, "Well, I'm glad things are getting back to normal." And I said,
Yeah.
Yeah.
"There's a car in my neighbor's pool.
Right.
That's not normal."
Well, it shouldn't be there anymore.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
No, I think there's only one vehicle left on the island that hasn't been touched. We all know
Yeah.
which one that is,
Yeah.
but we'll see. Hopefully that one goes away soon. But
Is it green?
It is green.
It might be. Yeah, it might be a large vehicle. No. So it's hard to put a time frame on it. Anybody that thinks that in 1 year this island would be back to what it was on September 27th either has never lifted a hammer in their life
Mhm.
or ever been around any kind of construction in their life. Because even if you were to come in on the 29th and get handed a permit, the likelihood of building a house
Right.
back to FEMA standards would take you more than a year anyway.
Yeah. Although
the
I'm
time
going
you
to tell you,
design
there
it-
are a lot of people who already did that, but they're going to find out if it's up to FEMA standards.
Like, right. Those that chose to go about it
Yeah.
the right way, to build a house from the ground up, by the time you design it and do everything,
Right.
you're not getting it done in a year.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
So the LPA, can I move on now?
Oh yeah.
All right. The
Sure.
LPA started kind of talking about the comp plan and the density and the whole thing at the last meeting, and it seems like the LPA is leaning toward wanting more density in the downtown area. Is that something you're in favor of?
That's what you said, but I haven't. I mean, I sat through probably 2/3 of the meeting, and then I had to leave to go to another one, so I didn't get to see that part of the discussion. So
Okay.
I don't know exactly what the context was, what they were talking about with density.
Well, Jason Green, just to kind of paraphrase, was asking them questions. He had like 5 or 6 questions. And one of the questions was, what is your thought on density? And I think, everyone but Anita and maybe one other person said that they would like to see more density in the downtown area. Do you?
Again, that's
yes or no, right? I mean, do you want to just keep the comp plan the way it is, or would you like to see more density down there somehow?
Well, I think just by right, what people can build back is what I've said on your show hundreds of times. Just by right, the density is going to increase or could potentially increase. Because if you had a 2-bedroom, 1-bath cottage and you're building back a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, and you're automatically, if it's going to be in the short-term rental program, you're automatically increasing the density. Although it be short-term, but it's going to be.
I think they were talking more about commercial buildings.
Commercial buildings. I mean, just by what you can do by right, it's going to increase.
Okay.
Look at, trying to think of one we could use. What they could build back by right.
Neptune?
I don't know if by right that they could build back more density. I suppose if they laid out the property a little bit.
Yeah.
I think they had 70 units or something.
So who
like
could
that.
then? Who will give us an example of someone who maybe
In
could?
the downtown district, it's kind of difficult to trying to think off the top of my head all the properties that are in that area, but it could be. I mean, just look at Kia Stereo Shops, for instance. If someone had that property and wanted to build something there, what they could build by right, that's going to increase density just because of what they can do by right. Look at the property that we're on. If what that's zoned to do, they could increase density by right. There's nothing you can do about that. So am I in favor of it? That's not a good way to put it.
Okay.
Do I support people building what they're allowed to build by right? Absolutely.
Okay. So do you want to see people that are allowed to build back by right get more than they're allowed to build back by right? In the commercial end of it. I mean, we know we have a bunch of proposals out there that are bigger than what they have by right.
But again, so let me ask you this. If I said,
ask me, I'm not
nobody.
nobody.
I'm asking this to the general public. Let me ask it to you this way.
All right.
If let's say someone had 50, we'll just use that as a simple number.
All right.
They could build 50 within 3 stories by right. If they get the extra 5 feet, so they can go to 35 feet. Let's say they can build their 50 units within 3 stories. But they only want to build 40 units, but go 4 stories. Would you be opposed to that? Or would anybody be opposed to that? So is it a height thing we're talking about? Or is it a density issue?
I think it's both. Yeah. I don't know what's
you're talking
bigger than the
different
other.
If you want to go to 4 stories and go from 50 to 100, that's a whole different story.
Okay. So you answer your own question then. If it does go 40 and higher, are you okay with that? Even
I'm not opposed to looking at, if you want to open air or something like that. I'm not a big fan of doubling what you have, and I've been transparent about that from the beginning. If you've got 10 and you want 20 just because the dollars and cents don't make sense to you, that's not a criteria that I'm going to take into consideration for you to get what you want. So in maxing out the comp plan just because the comp plan says it, that's not the way the process works. The land development code is there as a backstop to the comp plan. The comp plan may say you're allowed to do this, but through the land development code, you have to do this, this, and this to reach that max. So do we give everybody the max the comp plan allows just because that's what it says? I don't know if that's the answer either.
Do you see comp plan changes and land development code changes coming down the road for the town?
I think there's going to have to be some tweaks, not a whole rewrite of the comp plan. I don't think that makes sense.
What are the tweaks that you think we might see?
There's several. I mean, I think that's some of the stuff you talked about in the LPA meeting. I think some of that. I think Anita asked they asked to have a joint meeting. Anita and I have talked since then. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I think there needs to be very clear direction out of that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, and whatever way it falls, whether it's whatever the majority says they're okay with, then you respect the process and you move on
and get on with it. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But it needs to be none of this back and forth anymore. This is the way we want to move forward as a town. Write the plan. Let's move forward.
Why do there need to be any changes?
Maybe there doesn't. Maybe there isn't going to be any.
Okay.
I mean, I think that there has to be some tweaks, as we talked about in the land development code. Some of the things that the things that you never would have thought you had to come across with the building back the pools, for instance.
Okay.
Things like that.
That's a minor thing.
And we're never going to get all of them fixed in the first iteration of the land development code. But we got to make sure whatever we do on the comp plan, that's a process. That involves the state. That involves having to send things up to get the big brother to say yes or no and approve it and do all that kind of stuff.
Well, Jason Green, who did a lot of the speaking at the LPA meeting, made it sound like, okay, we need to get this done. We need to get these changes made. We need to get, maybe he didn't use the word changes, but it seemed like there's going to be some changes made to those documents. And does that leave people out there wondering?
I still don't believe that there's a majority from the LPA or the council that are in favor of upending the comp plan and starting again.
No, I agree.
I think that there's maybe some things that we need to tweak, whether it's adding zones through the comp plan, the future use map, that kind of stuff. But I don't think there's anybody that's just saying, scrap the caddy, let's start again.
Yeah.
At least unless something's changed since our last joint meeting.
Right.
But watching the LPA meeting, I didn't feel that was the case. But I do feel there's a willingness to adjust some of the height issues maybe, or some of the side setbacks or something through the land development code that we can control without having to completely uproot the comp plan.
Right. And so people shouldn't be worried that these changes that are coming down are going to all of a sudden allow gigantic buildings to be built all over the island. Right.
Just because you see a proposal or you see something posted on Beach Talk Radio doesn't mean it's happening.
What?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of
what's on
proposals
Beach Talk?
out there.
Right.
There
Well,
are
if
a
it's
lot
on Beach Talk, it must be real, right?
50% of the time.
No,
There are a lot of proposals out there. I mean,
sure.
I don't even know.
Well,
I
that
mean,
tells you that people
and none of
wanna
them have
build
come
that.
before the LPA yet.
And I'm not a developer, so I can't speak on the behalf of a developer, but I've dealt with enough of them long enough to know that it's no different if you go into a car dealership. Window sticker says 40,000. I only want to pay 25.
Yeah, you're going to try.
You're gonna try, and you're gonna, in your heart, you're willing to spend. You can spend this much. To me, in development's the same thing. You may not get exactly what you want, but is there a happy medium that both sides can live with?
Right.
It's a compromise that everybody can live with. It betters the community. The developers can make their money that they need to make the project worthwhile. And hopefully that's where we end up with some of these projects.
I don't know. Ben at Moss Marina sure made it sound like that was his last proposal that he was putting on the table.
And maybe it is.
Yeah.
Again, we talk about that proposal all the time.
Yeah.
One, there hasn't been a proposal submitted, so we don't know exactly what they're submitting.
Mhm.
We've seen pictures and we've seen discussion, but until we see an actual plan that they want to put forth, we won't know heights and sizes and density and all those numbers. We could talk till we're blue in the face, but again, you could take a building that looks that big and put half the density that people think fit in it,
Right.
and you just get bigger all suites. Or there's other things that can happen inside that building, and that's why I always say, are we worried about the size of the building or the density inside, or both?
What
And-
do you think people that live on the island are most worried about? What do you, when you talk to the residents and you
They're
know,
going to lose their community. That's very simple, and that's very important to me. This island has been a community long before we got here, and hopefully long after we're gone.
Mhm.
We fought for a beach school. Why do we fight for a beach school? Because we want families to be on the island. Do we want families on the island, or do we want it to be a tourist attraction? Or do we want it to be what it's been ever since I've known about Fort Myers Beach? And both, a place where families can live and enjoy it, a place where seasonal residents can come and enjoy it, a place for business to be able to make money and people come down and spend money. To me, why change what the comp plan's vision was for this island? And
But in a modern world, that may be unrealistic, because just the price of the real estate. I mean, I know
it's still
people
selling,
who
but-
bought their places for $40,000.
yeah,
You you can't buy that place now for $4 million.
exactly.
So
And
there's your problem. It's the economics of it.
well, the times are changing. The people, what you made in the 40s and what you make,
Oh yeah,
has drastically changed. The people, it may get a little bit younger. There may be people that baby boomers or people have done well in their 30s that we are seeing buying properties over here now that still have families and they're still fighting for the school. So there's no doubt in my mind we are going to maybe see a shift in the people that are here that can afford to be here. But that doesn't mean that, and I use this all the time, it doesn't mean the culture is going to change. The people working here,
Right.
the people that come to visit here, the people that come to spend their money here, that live here, are going to change. It's still the same culture. And I think that's what attracts people to Fort Myers Beach is you're sitting down like this and you don't know if you're talking to someone that's got more money than God or someone that just got done flipping dishes or cleaning dishes at the place you're sitting at. So that's what Fort Myers Beach is. And as long as we keep that, there's going to be $1 million houses. There's going to be people that are going to build back cottages for 500,000-600,000, hopefully. And they're going to still be that cool beachy. They're just going to be elevated. So I think to me, that's important to keep that environment and that vibe. We could still be fun and eclectic and funky.
we need our bars on the beach though. Are we going to be able to get those?
Talk to these. I don't know.
The
So,
FEMA guys.
Well, they technically have one. It's by the pool, so I mean, you can stay in a room. You got one right
one
there.
of the things that people also say is the beachy vibe, but you can even see it now, even though there aren't a ton of places open. You can see it with the Margaritaville colors. You can see it with the clock color. You can see it at Wahoo Willie's on the wall.
Yeah.
It's and
It's
Nervous
fun.
Nelly still has their different colors, and when they open, I keep saying that side of Fort Myers Beach is going to be the place that people
That'll be old Fort
drift
Myers Beach.
to. Until,
You know, where we were just talking about it when we were down. We all know that the beach is going to look a little different, right?
Mhm.
It's not going to be that Sleepy Shrimp Village that we had, or the feeling like
Mhm.
that. The small cottages, the smaller little bars, the salty crabs, the small little places like that are gone. They're just gone. We can't get them back the way they were. That's just the reality. And when we were fishing down in Key West this weekend, we thought, we're looking around and we were thinking to ourselves, what if a storm like that were to hit Key West?
Mhm.
Old Florida and Key West would be gone. They could not build back Key West the way it is. And maybe there'll be a day, unfortunately, that happens to them. I hope it never does in my lifetime or anyone's lifetime. But you look at other communities, you think, yeah, we had that, and now we don't. And they wouldn't have it because they wouldn't be allowed to have it.
Right.
So we're in that boat where we aren't allowed to have exactly what we had. But it doesn't mean the people that worked here want to come back and work here. They love working here. They love people that visit here want to come back and stay here. Now, some people, it's going to price some people out.
some people will make a lot of money
that's
on
it.
selling their property.
That's the economics of it. Unfortunately, that's the business part of it.
When you were in Key West, did you see any roosters?
We heard a few.
All right, Dan. Anything we know you got to get to that meeting. So anything you want to make sure that we pass along? What's the FEMA meeting going to be about, real quick?
This is essentially just a snapshot of where we've come and what the long-term goal is, what we're trying to achieve, and working with FEMA on how we want to be more resilient, how we want to build back the island stronger than it was. So if we ever have to deal with this again, we don't have to deal with FEMA. No offense to FEMA again,
Gotcha.
So it's difficult when we all know anybody that's ever had to ask for money. It's never a good feeling. It's never something anybody wants to do. But it's something it's just part of life when you're dealing with something like this. So this is just going to be kind of a snapshot of that. It's going to be there for anybody that has questions still for SBA or FEMA. They can reach out and ask. It'll also be the same exact meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the same place. So people that can't make it tonight can attend that meeting tomorrow at 10. But it'll give you a chance to talk. All of our directors will be up there, and they'll kind of give an update of, where we're at with Parks and Rec, where we're at with environmental, where we're at, with public works. So you'll get to hear from them where we're at, where we're trying to go. And then like I said, if you want to speak with FEMA will be there this time.
Today, I mean, got to give them credit for coming into the.
But they had water in there with no ice on it. I said that's a good way to start it. You got to get some ice in that water.
And we will carry that meeting live at 6:00. Do you think it'll start right at 6, Dan, or do you?
It depends on if I get in there. Yeah.
All right. We'll let you go.
I'm
Dan.
just at the beginning just to kind of introduce everybody, and then I'll be the one shutting up and sitting off to the
All
side
right.
and letting people discuss what they need to
All
discuss.
right, we'll let you go
Your
and take care of
contractor
that.
just
So,
texted me.
Oh, did he?
He came.
thanks a lot,
He
Dan.
just got there later than you were
Yeah,
expecting.
expected.
Mayor
Yeah.
Dan
All
Allers,
right.
everybody is going to
All right,
get off
talk
to
to
the
you.
next meeting. So
Yeah,
thanks
so
very much.
Yeah,
We appreciate Dan coming on every Monday, and next Monday is back to 6:00. We'll do that remotely.
Oh, you got a present here?
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Sorry. So I think there was a question someone had asked about Times Square.
Yes,
and
I can
they
read
build
it.
Back,
Will
right?
the owners of Times
I'll show
Square
this to the.
properties,
can
it's over
see-
here this
Oh,
time,
this. Oh, you're
on the
this camera.
beach, be able to rebuild on the
And I'll
original
give that to Ed
footprints.
so he can post it on his
You can post
Facebook
it
if he
there,
wants. So
Yep.
this is essentially the Times Square properties, and the red line that you'll see there's two lines. There's the 1991 coastal
Mhm.
construction line, and then this is the 1978 coastal construction line.
Okay.
And what you can see, this is Crescent Park, and you can see how it comes across, and then it makes that hard turn.
Yeah.
So I think that'll give some people an answer as to what you can build back. If you look in this picture, you could see almost the entire Pierside restaurant,
Gone.
is
Never
gone,
going to be able to
and
build
it's
back.
on the other side of the coastal
So
construction
you can't
line.
build on this side of
This
that
is
line.
on this side of that line, right? So you can see this property,
Yeah.
where Anita's store was.
Yeah.
That line basically runs right next to her front door.
I see.
There you go.
So
Wow.
that you
So
can
the Dairy
post it-
Queen is still good, but
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the Dairy Queen obviously was there. This property is fine.
Mhm.
This one looks like
Could
the
be okay.
Sunset Grill could build back just has to
Yeah.
be. And I think the elevation there's 19 or 20 feet, so it will have to be built up. But
Well,
can it
that's-
be done?
so everything below that purple there is you can't build there anymore. And that was where the
But it's hard to say because that bottom part of that trapezoid there, kind of to
Yeah.
your,
I'll take a picture and post
Yeah,
it up
you can
there
keep it,
for
you
the
can-
newsletter tomorrow.
and here's some before and afters if you want them.
Oh,
I just
cool.
thought I'd,
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'll post all these pictures in the newsletter tomorrow,
He
folks.
loves
so you
putting
can see.
pictures in his
yeah, so
newsletter.
you can see them, and the rest of the stuff you already have. So
Cool.
I just wanted to
Thank
give
you
that
for
to you before,
thank you for that.
because we didn't
Appreciate
touch on
it.
that. But
All right.
talk to you guys later.
Mayor Dan Allis, everybody heading over to the FEMA meeting at the ballroom here at Diamond Head, and that runs from it starts at 6:00. I'm not really sure how long it will run. 6:00 to 7:30, and then there's another one tomorrow. So do
An
you?
hour and a half with FEMA, that would be fun, wouldn't it?
I'd much rather watch the Jets lose a football game than hang out in the same room as FEMA. Oh
you
no,
said
they
the
lost.
Giants?
They lost. The Giants came back
Yeah,
and
Giants
won.
came
Yeah.
back, yeah.
So and the Vikings are 0-2 now. So
And Detroit apparently is not going to win the Super Bowl now.
no, they're 1-1.
Apparently
Who
not.
did they lose to on Sunday?
Seattle. Seattle.
Yeah, in Seattle. So, do you feel like you got your personal problems addressed today?
No, I think no, I know there's no way you can't solve it on these. You don't solve these things in these interviews. I am fascinated to hear that he would give the grades. In a way, I agree that the town staff he gave him a B+ for I don't know what part about their attitude. I think they're trying to be positive. They aren't extremely helpful. But I'm not sure it's necessarily their fault. I think they're just way in over their
I
heads.
agree. I agree that you're talking about what was supposed to be government light
Right.
being hit with a gigantic storm that
Right.
basically affected every structure on this island, and now everybody wants a permit compared to before the storm, where they
Exactly.
were probably humming right along.
Yeah, they're probably
It's-
sitting around with not much to do some days, and nowadays
it's all they have to do.
I
Yeah.
do feel sorry. I mean, I'm getting some great response from some of the people there. They are very sorry. They would love to help, but they just can't
Right.
because they're just too busy. And so now I'm depending. My whole future rests on some guy in Miami with a big stamp that says "denied, no soup for you." It's just
Well, I do know that's going to change, and from what I understand, the company that they're changing to is really well respected and has high grades. So the
it'll be
sooner
too
the
late for
better.
me. It'll be too late for me.
Yes. It'll be too late for you. All right, man. Anything else you want to share
Hey.
before I know you got to go play some music?
I'm playing over at Lighthouse. If anybody's around town and wants to head over to the Lighthouse, you can either do the FEMA meeting
Yeah.
and listen to that, or you can come to the Lighthouse and have a cold beer and listen to me. I personally would go for the cold beer and me
All
than
right.
FEMA.
All right. Well, we thank you for coming on,
I
and
appreciate it.
we'll see you soon. But we'll also see you on the 28th. Got a lot of music going on at the on the
Yeah,
28th.
we've got a lot of music on there. There are a couple different things, so don't get confused. We have competing events going on, but I don't mind. I have absolutely no problem competing with anybody who's putting on music. So at that end of the side of the island over in Bay Park, it's going to be music there, and they're going to have some speakers, and we're going to be over at La Ola on Times Square.
What time do you start?
10 in the morning till
Okay.
10 p.m. We got music going basically 12 hours straight.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of crowd the beach has because it's a Thursday.
It's a Thursday, but I think a lot of people are going to come here and just support us. I mean, this is, and so far I see no hurricanes on the forecast. I think we're good.
Jeez. How dare you?
Wouldn't that be
What
a
is wrong
horrible
with
thing?
you, man?
Wouldn't that be a horrible thing?
All right, Stephen Clark, thank you all for tuning in. Thanks to the mayor. And we will flip over to the meeting at 6:00 as soon as it gets rolling. And we appreciate everything you guys have done. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much and have a great night.